Good afternoon. It's Tuesday, the 3rd of February. I'm Erin Viner. This is IBA News broadcasting from Jerusalem. We open with a major accident in the south. According to initial reports, there are at least 8 dead and some 35 injured in a bus that was reportedly filled with Bedouin worshippers returning home from praying at the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem. The bus was apparently hit by a tractor that fell off of a passing truck that was transporting it. Private vehicles are also believed to have been involved in the accident, which occurred on Road 31 near the Lehavim intersection just north of Beersheba. Magen David Adom paramedics transported the crash victims to area hospitals, assisted by helicopters dispatched by the IDF 669 Rescue Unit. Joining us now by telephone is Police Superintendent Mickey Rosenfeld. Good afternoon. Can you tell us, Mickey, please, about what caused the accident and what do we know about the fatalities?
Well, there's an investigation obviously taking place at the moment as to what happened on the road itself, the 31 road near Lehavim down in the southern district. What we know is that there was a tractor that was being transported on a vehicle. And that's what we're looking at the moment, how it managed to make direct contact with the bus. A relatively narrow road, and unfortunately, as a result, there were 8 people, 8 women, in fact, that were killed. 24 people were injured also, 2 of them moderately, 21 lightly, and 1 person injured seriously. Emergency teams and police units were dispatched immediately throughout the southern area. And all of those that have been injured have been taken to the Soroka hospital, also by helicopter as well, to receive medical treatment. But obviously a major incident at the moment that is being still investigated. Unfortunately, 8 women pronounced dead at the scene.
Now, many of the victims appear to have been trapped inside the bus for quite some time. Why did the rescue operation take so long?
What we know until now is the majority of people that were injured and that were killed at the scene were killed in the rear part of the bus as the tractor made direct contact. All the other people that were in the bus itself were quickly released and removed from the bus. Unfortunately, the sites that we had to deal with was the women that were killed, and in fact killed almost instantly as a result of the impact. So emergency teams arrived quickly, including the MDA emergency teams, and all of the people that were injured were removed relatively quickly from the scene and transferred also, as I mentioned, by helicopter to hospital.
Do you know how long the roads in the area are going to remain sealed?
Well, the investigation is continuing by police traffic officers to understand exactly how the collision took place, and we have to try and find out who was at fault. But at this moment, the main emphasis is dealing with the site itself, the investigation which is taking place. But it will probably take at least another hour, hour and a half until the road will be open in the southern area. Until now, all the traffic has been diverted.
Thank you very much for being with us this afternoon, Superintendent Rosenfeld.
Thank you very much.
In other news, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is calling on the United Nations Human Rights Council to shelve its report on this summer's Gaza conflict following the resignation of its chairman, William Shabazz. Netanyahu pointed out that the HRC has passed more resolutions against Israel than it has against Iran, Syria, and North Korea combined. Shabazz had been besieged by allegations of pro-Palestinian bias, while the committee he headed investigates alleged war crimes committed during the 2014 Gaza conflict between Israel and Hamas. The Canadian professor of international law was paid $1,300 for his legal opinion in 2012 while working as a consultant for the PLO. Shabazz maintains that he has been the victim of malicious attacks that could cast a cloud over the probe. The commission is due to release its report in March, and according to Shabazz, most of the research is already completed and that the writing phase is now underway. The other 2 committee members are Doubou Diène of Senegal and former New York Supreme Court Justice Mary McGowan. Israeli officials have refused to cooperate with the inquiry and denounced it as a kangaroo court. Shabazz discussed his decision to resign with Al Jazeera television.
Well, there's a new attack. Israel has announced that they're going to continue to try and attack my credibility. And the officials of the Human Rights Council have now decided that they're going to proceed with a kind of an inquiry. They're going to ask for legal advice and so on. So it makes it impossible for me to continue while that inquiry is going on. The work is urgent. The Commission has to finish its job and get the report submitted to the Human Rights Council in early March. and I just have to get out of the way so it can get on with the job. I don't want this inquiry or this attempt by Israel to sabotage the whole report. So I'm stepping aside.
Sir, these allegations are concerning work that you did for the Palestine Liberation Organization in 2012, correct?
That's correct. I did a legal opinion about the International Criminal Court when the Palestine Liberation Organization was advising people on the issue of ratifying the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court. They asked me for a legal opinion, and I delivered it. It was a small consultancy. I do this all the time for governments. And of course, what happens in the past is put aside when one is sworn in as a commissioner. I took an oath to be an independent and impartial member of the Commission of Inquiry, and nothing that has been done since the Commission began its work has suggested anything to the contrary. So this was something in the past, and it's out there, and now they're suggesting that I'm in some way beholden to the Palestinian Liberation Organization, but that's not the case. I'm an independent commissioner, and the Commission has conducted its work, as I think all observers have seen it work, including Israelis, with great integrity, with great independence, and great impartiality.
Israeli officials are welcoming Shabazz' resignation. Foreign Ministry spokesman Emmanuel Nachshon told IBA's Margot Dudkevich that the former Commission director is deceitful and biased.
Well, we think that the resignation of Mr. Shabazz is very good news, and not only for Israel, but also for the entire international community, because it has been demonstrated that he had an anti-Israel bias, which he tried to hide. But of course, truth always comes to the surface, and we know that the man is deeply anti-Israeli and is obsessed by his hatred against the state of Israel. The mere fact that such a person had been appointed as the president of this committee demonstrates to which extent certain enemies of Israel on the international scene are willing to go in order to hurt us. But now the truth will come out. The truth has already come out, and it is clear that this man should never have been part of this committee to start with. It does not mean that we must not continue fighting, because the fact that Mr. Shabazz is no longer part of this whole legal masquerade does not mean that we still have to fight the report. I do not know how much did Mr. Shabazz manage to poison and influence the report. I think, and we believe, that what we face is a classical case of the doctrine of the fruit of the poisonous tree. Whatever poison has been touched by Shabazz and introduced into this commission's work should be immediately cancelled, and I believe that it concerns the whole report. So this is where we stand at the moment.
Now, there are those that say that Shabazz failed to reveal that he had, some years in the past, carried out consultancy work for the PLO, for which he'd received a certain amount. I think it was $1,300. Does this necessarily mean he is biased?
Well, first of all, it means that he is a liar. And such a person should never be the president of an international commission. If Shabazz had a milligram of honesty, he would not have been there to start with, because he would have told the truth. So we know that he is a liar. Then we know that the man is obsessed by his anti-Israel hatred. It's not only the fact that he has been giving legal advice to the PLO, it is also the fact that he has been on a number of occasions stating very nasty things about the state of Israel and about the Prime Minister of the state of Israel. So we know that the man is not a friend. Now it has been demonstrated that he is also a crook. And from our point of view, this is more than enough.
Now, Prime Minister Netanyahu has called that following Shabazz's resignation, he's calling for the entire report to be shelved. What chances do you think of this happening?
Well, I hope that this will happen. As I mentioned earlier, those are the fruits of the poisonous tree. Since Shabazz is a liar, and since Shabazz hates Israel, it's reasonable to assume that whatever he has touched in this report is tainted by lies and hatred of Israel.
The Jordanian ambassador will return to Israel in the coming days following a reduction in friction between the two countries over the Temple Mount Al-Aqsa Mosque complex. Amman withdrew Ambassador Walid Obeidat 3 months ago after the compound was closed for a day following the shooting of Temple Mount activist Yehuda Glick. Jordanian officials in the Hashemite Kingdom say that Israel has taken significant steps to ease the situation and that many more Muslim worshippers have been granted access to pray at the site, which was also the location of the first and second Jewish temples.
Our ambassador in Israel to return to his position in Tel Aviv. We have done this because we felt that in the last period of time there has been significant improvements in the Haram al-Sharif, and the status quo has been maintained and worshippers have been allowed to worship freely as we demanded months ago. We continue to emphasize the importance of maintaining the status quo in Al-Haram al-Sharif, and we felt that there has been improvement in the last period. That's why we asked our ambassador to return to his post.
Hundreds of Hamas supporters demonstrated in the Gaza Strip against the decision by an Egyptian court to list the Palestinian group as a terrorist organization and ban its armed wing. The verdict is consistent with a systematic crackdown on Islamists by Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and is based on allegations that the Hamas Qassam Brigade staged terror attacks in support of Egypt's banned Muslim Brotherhood movement, including a bombing and shooting operation that killed 33 security personnel last October. A Hamas spokesman at the Gaza demonstration demanded that Egypt reverse the decision, slamming it as benefiting only the Zionist enemy. He went on to insist that Hamas hopes that peace and security will prevail in Egypt and that the group only fights against Israel. The Gaza rulers have also indicated that while the ruling stands, they will no longer accept Egypt as a broker in negotiations between Hamas and Israel. Turning to politics, and it all relates to corruption. The state comptroller has now given a firm date for that expenditure report of the prime minister's residences, and Netanyahu said that he will respond to it once it has been released. Meanwhile, Yesh Atid leader Yair Lapid says that his party will push a new anti-corruption platform when the next Knesset session convenes. Here with more is IBA's political correspondent Eli Wogelenter.
A report into allegations of excessive expenditures and possible misappropriation of state funds by the Netanyahu family will be published. That's the word from State Controller Yosef Shapira after days of speculation on whether the possibly damning paper would be released. Shapira notified Attorney General Yehuda Weinstein of his intention to publish the file on February 17th, exactly a month before the election. Shapira stressed that any allegations of improprieties or criminal misconduct would be included in the report, which is expected to further stir up the election campaign and the controversy surrounding the so-called Bottlegate affair. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that he would address the allegations in full once the report was made public, adding that it will be proven that everything was done in accordance with the law. Shapira's office issued a statement saying the report, quote, raises concern of compromised integrity or possible criminal activity, and that the cumulative information had been passed along to Weinstein. The allegations discussed in the report suggest Netanyahu's wife, Sarah, pocketed thousands of shekels on deposits for bottles recycled by the Prime Minister's residence. On the campaign trail, Yesh Atid Chairman Yair Lapid has unveiled a plan for legislation to combat corruption, legislation, he says, that will be a precondition for Yesh Atid joining any governing coalition. In a speech outside Masyau prison in Ramla, where former Shas leader Aryeh Deri and former Finance Minister Avram Hershon served sentences, Lapid said the plan will include 9 central tenets, including placing restrictions on public figures under investigation, accused of or convicted for crimes. The law would also set mandatory minimum punishments for corruption. According to the plan, anyone convicted of a crime that includes moral turpitude will never be allowed to serve as a minister or member of Knesset again, instead of the current 7-year cooling-off period. And public figures who are called into a police investigation will no longer have the right to remain silent. Finally, pressure is building on police detectives to call in for investigation 4 MKs allegedly involved in corruption. Ynet revealed last week that 4 legislators under suspicion would not be questioned until after the elections. 1 Yesh Atid MK and 2 Meretz candidates have petitioned Attorney General Weinstein to order the police to summon the 4 Knesset members as soon as possible. There are 6 weeks from today until Election Day. Aaron?
Thanks for that report. The Ukrainian leaders are miserable Jews. Well, that's from Ukraine's pro-Russian rebel leader in Donetsk, intending to attack the country's leaders with an anti-Semitic jibe. Alexander Zakharchenko, who heads the so-called Donetsk People's Republic, claimed that Kiev's pro-Western leaders are miserable representatives of the Jewish people. In a reference to Ukraine's nationalist forebearers, Zakharchenko said that he couldn't remember a time when Cossacks were led by people who never held a sword in their hands, and that they would turn in their graves if they could see who is now running Ukraine. The rebel leaders have announced a mass call-up hoping to bolster their forces to 100,000 troops. Fighting between the national forces and pro-Russian rebels surged following the collapse of a ceasefire deal in a conflict that has so far claimed over 5,000 lives since April. President Reuven Rivlin urged Israelis and Palestinians in Hebron to live together peacefully during his visit to the ancient biblical West Bank city and the adjacent Kiryat Arba settlement. The occasion marked the first time that a sitting president has gone to Hebron in 17 years. Rivlin made the remarks at a ceremony celebrating the conclusion of a renovation project at the Hebron Heritage Museum in the Beit Hadassah apartment complex. He also spoke at the Tomb of the Patriarchs, where he emphasized that even those who differ in views regarding renewed Jewish settlement in the city cannot and should not deny the deep cultural and historical connection of the people of Israel to Hebron. The Meretz Party and Peace Now organization urged Rivlin not to make the journey. Protesters showed up at the reception, arguing that the city is not at the heart of consensus, but the heart of the occupation, and that funds invested there should instead be used for welfare and education initiatives within the pre-1967 lines. In other news, the death of a young woman in a fire at a Pisgat Ze'ev apartment 10 days ago was the result of arson. The finding was revealed at the Jerusalem Magistrates Court yesterday following the lifting of a gag order. 24-year-old Orit London died several days after being rescued by firefighters after being trapped inside of her flame-engulfed apartment. 3 suspects arrested by police shortly after the incident have been identified as one neighbor and 2 Palestinians whose remand has been extended until Monday. The suspects allegedly broke into the apartment below the victims, where they stole property and then set a mattress on fire that spread to London's apartment. The perpetrators have admitted to holding a dispute with the downstairs tenants, but told investigators that they had not intended to kill anyone. Nationwide hospitals are reporting exceptionally overcrowded conditions, and some facilities are treating as many as 350% over their patient capacity rates. Medical personnel said they are struggling to cope with the situation and have no other choice but to admit patients to already packed wards. Those awaiting treatment at many emergency rooms are often forced to wait up to 10 hours before receiving attention. Officials at the Hadassah Ein Kerem Hospital in the capital report that the level at the internal medicine department has reached 140%, and that it's now even worse at the intensive care unit, which is operating at a 200% capacity, but that the situation at Tel HaShomer is even more critical, with patient levels more than 3.5 times higher than what is considered to be full occupancy. Haifa's Rambam Hospital, the Ziv in Tzfat, and Cholon's Wolfson Medical Center are also reporting similar situations, being attributed in part to large numbers of the elderly suffering from seasonal viruses. Doctors and health officials have for years demanded that the government provide greater funding to allow for the expansion of emergency rooms and other departments. In a gesture intended to highlight the dangers of racial and ethnic hatred sweeping Europe, German Chancellor Angela Merkel visited the Doheny Street Synagogue in Budapest for a meeting with local Jewish leaders. Merkel placed a stone of remembrance on a memorial plate and stood with a bowed head before a sculpted willow tree that bears the metal leaves engraved with the names of some of the hundreds of thousands of Hungarian Jews deported to their deaths at the Auschwitz Nazi concentration camp during the Second World War. Among the topics discussed were the Holocaust, anti-Semitism in Hungary today, and recent efforts by the Budapest government to finally acknowledge the nation's responsibility for the murder of 70% of the Jewish community during the Holocaust. Taking a sharp turn to sports and in local soccer, and 2-time defending champions Maccabi Tel Aviv have opened up a 4-point lead at the top of the standings after beating crosstown rivals Hapoel 2-0 at Bloomfield Stadium last night. Maharan Radi scored in the first half and Nikola Mitrovic in the second to give Maccabi the victory and extend the team's unbeaten streak to 11 games. The derby was the first one since the match between the Tel Aviv clubs had to be abandoned in the first half when a Hapoel fan ran onto the pitch and assaulted Maccabi's Eran Zahavi, leading to a full-fledged melee. More than 230 police and 400 guards were at Bloomfield last night to ensure that this match was peaceful, and both teams also did their part by appealing for calm in the lead-up to the showdown and posing for a joint photo ahead of the kickoff. Taking a look at local finance, and the shekel today put in a mixed performance while share prices on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange were up across the board. Here's a look at the afternoon numbers. Tells us that tomorrow we can expect mostly sunny skies and another slight drop in temperatures. Here's the forecast at home and abroad over the next 24 hours. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. Hope you'll join us again tomorrow, and I'll be here to bring you the latest breaking news from Israel. I'm Erin Viner, wishing you a good evening and shalom from Jerusalem.